Wait lang, wala. Ay, okay. Hi! Background. So hi, this is my 4th day here sa Australia and walking tour ba tawagan niya? Nawala na may gamay. Ay, musaka ta sa kami sa bridge. And then mo cross sa dito no?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Doon raman to sa Kuan, Chinatown.
Ay, siya. Ah. Diri na lang. Okay, turn left ba? Keep left. Ay. Okay, go.
Left, mag-yun ilan diri.
Mo siguro si Beyonce, no? To the left. Kaya yung
Oh.
sulti. Dili to the right. Si dili akong gamay diri. Nagmay pud sila. Correct mo.
Hi. Maglakaw mi sa Dan kay mag-attend mi og walking tour sa Sydney.
And it's for free.
And it's for free, but we are going to pay him Daryl.
Donations.
We will donate Daryl.
We will donate Daryl.
Quanto tempo aqui? Okay, so yeah, mucho gusto.
Tingin ang website if you want to have food. Nandaghan mi direct.
Does anyone not check this? See how well I can do this? You're actually pretty evenly distributed. So, if everyone on this side of my arms, can head just over this way, and we can split up. Cool, and then the rest of you can hang over there with Paul. Alright, and we'll just do a quick count to see if I've done a good job at splitting that group up. The answer is I probably haven't, but we'll find out. Just make sure Alright. All right, hello.
Hello.
Ooh, yeah, we got some good energy this morning. This is good. I don't know, sometimes I say hi to the group and no one says anything at all. So thanks for saying hi. For those of you who I haven't introduced myself to yet, my name is Leo. I was born and raised in Sydney. I grew up down by Bondi, down by the beach. Has anyone been to Bondi? Anyone been down to Bondi? We got one person. We got one. Oh, two? Okay. Have you guys also been to Manly? Okay. Which one's better? That's all right. You don't have to answer. Sorry, you don't have to answer. It's fine. I think we could all be friends. But even though I did grow up down by the beach, I'm actually not a surfy dude. They did try to get me to learn to surf in primary school, but it just didn't stick for some reason. I used to be absolutely terrified of big waves, which is not great when you're learning to surf. But thankfully, we don't have to do any surfing on the tour today, unless you really want to, I guess. But I do happen to know a few things about Sydney. Before we start though, I'll get through a few things. So, first one is that for those of you who don't know, the traditional owners and custodians of the land that we're standing on right now are the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. These are some of our First Nations peoples here in Australia. You might have heard them referred to as the Aboriginal Australians. And they've been living on this land for upwards of 60,000 years. So they've still got a connection to this land that was not stamped out, even though the colonists turned up. So I'd like to pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. And I'd like to extend that respect to all of our First Nations peoples throughout Australia as part of our ongoing efforts at reconciliation. Now, I'll talk more about that history later on in the tour, but I just like to put that up front so people know whose land they're standing on. Second thing is, if you haven't done one of our tours before, the way we work is on a try before you buy system, if you like. So at the end of the tour, if you've enjoyed it, I hope you'll leave me with what you think the tour was worth. We're also not paid by any outside sponsors to say anything in particular. I'm just telling you some stuff I happen to know about Sydney. Now, speaking of stuff I know about Sydney, I'll give you a quick overview of what we'll do today. So we're starting off here out the front of Town Hall, and then we'll basically weave our way along George Street. Take a look at the Queen Victoria building, Quarry Street, Hyde Park, Martin Place. Some of these names may be familiar to you. We've already walked around a bit. But halfway through the tour, so at about 12 o'clock, 12:15, we'll take a quick break. It'll only be about 10 minutes. And then on the second half of the tour, we'll head around Circular Quay, get our first look at the Opera House and the Harbour Bridge. We'll take a quick look into the Rocks, which is the more historical, colonial part of Sydney. And then finally, we'll finish up down at Dawes Point, right underneath the Harbour Bridge and in amongst all the iconic Sydney landmarks. Along the way, I'm going to try and give you some things to do during your time here in Sydney, or at the very least, I'm going to try and tell you something that you didn't know beforehand. So, without further ado, if you take yourselves back in time 200 years ago, that area where we were just standing would have been the edge of Sydney. More specifically, it would have actually been their cemetery, the old Sydney burial ground. But unfortunately, the way that they buried the bodies there meant that they actually started to smell a little bit over time. And as the city expanded around this area, people started to complain to the local council about the smell. And eventually there became so many of those complaints that the council had to do something about it. So their solution was to dig up all the bodies and move them to a new cemetery out in the west of Sydney. And on the space that was left, they built Town Hall. Dates back to 1868. It took them about 20 years to build. And it's mostly an exhibition hall and performance space. So music recitals, dance concerts, university graduations, that sort of thing. There's a big organ in there. But you might have seen this scaffolding in the works over here when you were waiting. So that's them doing sort of renovations and refurbishments on Town Hall to keep it looking nice. But when they do those refurbishments, they actually sometimes dig up the odd body or two from the graveyard that used to be here. Apparently they didn't do a very good job of getting rid of them. Now, if you look behind you, you can see these tracks here. This is George Street, and it was one of the very first streets in Sydney, and it's really long. goes all the way from Central Station down in the south up to Circular Quay in the north. And it's a good landmark for getting around the city because it cuts right through all the buildings. And if you want to get back up here at the end of the tour and you don't want to have to walk all the way up George Street, you could just catch the light rail, which has got the stop here at Town Hall, but it's also got stops at Central Station, Haymarket, Chinatown, here, Wynyard, Bridge Street, and then down at Circular Quay. So talk more about how to use public transport later in the tour, but I just thought I'd point this one out in case you want to get back up here at the end. You have a question?
Yeah, what is it called? Town Hall? New City Hall?
That's a good question. Actually don't know. City Hall, Town Hall. I suppose when it was built, they kind of classified Sydney as a town.
Okay.
But the classification of town, you know, there's a million different ways you can classify that. One of the ones I know is if it's got a church, it's a town. If it's got a cathedral, it's a city, or something like that.
Yeah.
But in terms of why specifically for Town Hall, I don't know.
So it's the truth. This is the dead center.
Especially around Halloween. I think if you wander through there at night, you might see some spooky ghosts. Who knows? But yeah, George Street is kind of the center. Or you can also classify Marketplace. We'll get there later. That's more of the Big Bang. So. From here, though, we're going to head over towards a big sandstone building, which is the...
I'm some friends. When I come back from Bali, I was helped by the softball. That's why things on my eyes.
We came from Hawaii.
Okay, but it's not, you know,
Ano na yung orange sa Queen. Mas sinashay ko.
I mean, other than... Oh, but Australia in general. Most people say surprising things about what's in general knowledge. So we're now standing out the front of the QVB, and 200 years ago this would have been the marketplace of Sydney, but I'll talk about more about that when we go inside. QVB incidentally stands for the Queen Victoria Building. We just shortened it because if you turn around here, you can see this statue of this grumpy looking lady. This is a statue of, anyone want to guess? Queen Victoria, after whom the building was named. But that statue's only been there since 1987, whereas the building itself is over 100 years old. It used to sit outside the Irish House of Parliament in Dublin, but they obviously didn't want her there, so they packed her up and they brought her over here. And when she arrived, she brought one of her dogs over there. His name is Islay.
Buhay pa na. Oh, dili na.
We can have a listen to what that is. Folks, you don't have to move, but there's going to be a large group of people.
My name is Ivan.
Mag-wish mo, mag-wish. I think wrong atong i-sud lang. Tuyok.
say thank you anyway, though. He's just very appreciative generally. So yes, this is Lane. And it's a wishing well, as you said, and all the money that goes in there goes to help children who are deaf and blind. But, you know, we've given him the ability to speak because he's done such a good job. It's not actually a talking dog, though. Sorry to ruin the magic if you were under that impression. His voice is done by a radio host, a talkback radio host called John Laws, who is still on the airwaves, actually. I'm surprised, considering how long he's been around for.
Hello. My name is Anne.
All right. Keeps going, interrupting me. There you go. Now you can say you've been to Sydney and you've seen a talking dog, and you won't technically be lying. So you can impress your friends if you like. But we'll head inside the QVB.
The wishing well now.
I like it's really fun to say because we go, oh yeah, we've got a talking dog in Sydney. What? They don't believe me. They go, no way. They go, no way.
So is this full time?
No, it's not full time. I was a student up until starting next year. Science.
Labi ng mga video.
A lucky pick, I
Ano
guess.
na yung power bank?
Yeah, considering. Well, no, I picked it before COVID. 1 year before COVID.
Paspas mo?
And
Paspas
then
mo
I did
ba?
my degree in infection science online because of the pandemic.
Use the opportunity to come out and visit.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's been great. So
Have you been to Sydney, Australia before?
no, it's not once before, about 12 years ago. But we totally, I don't know.
Oh yeah. Sydney, yeah, awesome.
Ano yung Chinatown?
Everyone can just come a little bit closer in so we don't so much the path and you guys come closer in here. Oh, yeah. No, sir. So, we're now inside the QVB, and like I mentioned, 200 years ago, this would have been the marketplace of Sydney. But in 1898, government decided that they wanted to formalise the function of this area a bit, so they built this big Romanesque style building you can see around us. But didn't do its job very well, so over the years it's had a number of different suggested functions. At one point, people even recommended that we replace the whole thing with car parking, which is a bit of a habit we have it in Sydney. We see a nice old building and we go, how many cars we can fit in that? Thankfully though, in 1986, an independent company bought the building and restored it. We get to appreciate the cool architecture that remains. A few places of note are the two clocks at either end of the building. If you go up onto the second floor, you get a good look at both of them. The one down that end shows scenes from Australian history, and the one up this end looks like a clock. It's supposed to show scenes from British history, but they're supposed to be animatronic, and the display is a little bit dodgy. So sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't, and I don't. The time is not correct on that clock either. It's a bit odd, but if you want to go take a look, it's worth it. From here though, we're going to head around the corner out to the QVB light rail stop. But I encourage you to take a look up at the dome in the ceiling as we go as well. There's a nice bit of glass work in there.
Saan daw? At saan daw? Ano kumakain tayo? Saan siya?
Una de las hábitats de eso porque hay mucho sol. ¿Tú has visto Mario Vaquerizo? No,
So if you look back across the light rail tracks there, you can see the Sydney Hilton Hotel. Now that is just a regular Hilton hotel, but on the 13th of February, 12:40 a.m. 1978, the two garbage people taking out a dumpster for the hotel, when from inside the bin a large bomb exploded, which killed the two people who were moving it and a nearby police officer, also injured some other people. Now, it's at this time that there was a Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting going on, which meant that our Prime Minister at the time, Malcolm Fraser, as well as some other important world leaders, were discussing sensitive issues. So we can guess that they were probably the targets for this attack. We did manage to sentence a guy to jail for 14 years for the crime, but he only served 2 of them, so we found out that he didn't actually do it. And considering it's been such a long time since that happened, we'll probably never find out who actually committed that crime. Although, of course, some conspiracy theories state that it was one of Australia's spy agencies that orchestrated the attack, because they were struggling for relevance at the time, but that sounds like a bit of a stupid plan to me, so that's probably not what happened. Follow me though, we're going to head down George Street and then towards Pitt Street Mall.